Hello, everyone. I am Brian Saber, and I am inaugurating this series of interviews with fellow introverts by having Marc Scorca on with me today. Marc, I have known for 35 years and didn't know he was an introvert. He is an opera uh, impresario, if you will. He is the president and CEO of Opera America. He has been there 33
34 years.
years, now 34 on March 20 something. It will be 34 years. And before that was at Chicago Opera Theater in Chicago, which is where I first met him.
Which is where we met.
Yeah, and I'm always delighted when I meet a fellow introvert who everyone thinks is a fellow extrovert. So, Marc, tell me about this dichotomy between the way the world sees you and certainly the outward nature of your job and your inner self.
Well, thank you. And what a pleasure to talk about this. I do think that we are not really talking about just a simple binary of either being an introvert or being an extrovert. I think there are lots of degrees in between the two poles. And someone once referred to me as an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
So even though if I do, Isabel Myers-Briggs, type test, I am an introvert. I lead a very extroverted life. And of course, those who follow this, the introverts are people who aren't necessarily hiding in a corner, but they're people who recharge their batteries, as it were, who regain their energy alone. And that certainly describes me. I am comfortable being with people. I'm excited about being with people. Some people suggest that I'm actually good at it. But when all is said and done, that extroverted activity tires me, it wears me out, and I need to go back to my quiet space to recharge my battery. So yes, I'm an introvert in terms of where I derive my energy, but I'm a very comfortable operator in the extroverted world.
You have said it beautifully. I could have had you write my book for me. It is true that people think, when they think introvert, they think hermit. And when they think extrovert, they think someone who's the life of the party. And party is an important word here because I too derive a lot of my energy from individuals, but need a lot of time to recharge myself. I just spent all of Sunday doing a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and was happy as a clam. But you do a lot of events, which I have always found really strenuous. I can't say I enjoy them. That I enjoy people in large groups. I often will just find one person to talk to, but in a role like yours, you've got to work the room, right?
It's so interesting. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. Now, if I am going to an event and I am just attending, I will tend to find one person, two people, or serially have one-on-one conversations. But then there are the events where I am the president of Opera America and I am somehow in the spotlight of the event. And that calls forth a more performative quality where I am not necessarily just doing what I would do normally as Marc Civilian, but I am doing my job as a public figure in the opera world. And that does call on a different energy. And I have learned how to tap into that energy and to spend it, and actually even to derive energy from it, because in that public role, the attention of people, the affirmation that may come from some applause or a nice introduction, that is energizing. But that is me in a performative role, not me as just being who Marc is.
That's well put. By the way, I don't know if I ever have known whether you have a performance background. Did you start in opera?
No,
Were you
no.
a singer? No?
No, I never was a wannabe singer or a musician who enjoyed performing in front of people. But I will say from an early age, I never was shy at a microphone. I was never shy in front of people. That the performance element of leadership, the performance element associated with extroversion always came very easily to me.
Mm,
Um, I didn't mind the spotlight, recognizing that it is a role I was playing and not necessarily just who I was when I was by myself.
yes. And in a sense, that well, many performers are more introverted than not and are
It is
comfortable.
surprising how much that is the case. Yeah.
Yes, and you can see it actually. I've learned over the years, as an aside, I go to a lot of cabaret performances of Broadway people and so forth. And it's interesting, some of them don't do well in cabaret because they have to be themselves in the patter in between. And I think, wow, I think they may be introverts who do better when they're in that role, and moving along. So I appreciate that. So we're having this interview, and I wonder, will your staff and those who know you best professionally be surprised that we're having this interview?
No, you know, no, they know this.
They do.
Um,
How do they know this?
I think, you know, a part of building a team
Mhm,
is that we get to know one another.
mhm,
And whether we have done it in a formal sense of all taking sort of a type test and discussing the results, or in those moments when we're all getting ready for the show and you just tell the things you tell, or if we're flying to a city to do something together, you have conversations in the airport. I don't hide any of this. Um, I think it surprises people to hear that it really the alone time is how I recharge my battery,
mhm.
because they tend to see me in more extroverted way. But if they were to inquire how I keep on going day in and day out, and sometimes long days, I let them know that for the introvert, and I offer this as advice to some of the young people in our industry, it's not that I recharge my battery alone by taking a day to do a 1,000-piece puzzle. I've learned how to catch my introvert breath, how to spend 15 or 20 minutes just, focusing on something else that recharges me alone, or that I use airport time. It sounds weird to say that I can be alone in an airport, but when I'm sitting in that chair in the lounge waiting to get on a plane, I'm very much alone. I'm listening for if they call my row, but I'm very much alone. Or as I'm sitting in the seat of the plane waiting to take off, I can't use my laptop. I'm just sitting there. That's alone time. I recapture. I catch my breath. So I've learned how to recognize introvert opportunities
Yes.
on the run. Uh, and I don't in my schedule have long times of aloneness, but I've learned how to recharge my battery in small increments.
It's interesting that you say that because after I've been at a conference or presenting or training or something, I am so excited to have that travel time.
Hmm.
And I know people can look at travel time as a real pain, especially today, but I'm just by myself for
Yeah.
many hours, and that's a relief, very helpful.
It is funny because I fly so much and almost all of it is alone that when I fly with my husband, it is difficult because I can't be introverted. I need to be chatting with him. And
And
we're going together, we're on a trip together, we're on vacation, on some adventure.
mhm.
And I have to remember that I'm with someone because airports and air travel have become so much the place where I catch my breath.
Isn't that interesting? Yes. So you mentioned not shy about this or that. So, there's shyness. People conflate it with introversion. They have this often the same result, but they come from a different area. I think you may know, well, you've read the book, so that I am also shy. And so that impacts the socialization, the meeting new people even more. So it sounds like shy is not part of your personality.
No, it's not. I think as a little kid, I was shy,
Okay.
but as an adult, and I would say to people who are listening to this that although your type, according to type theory, doesn't change, you certainly do evolve in your ability to manage the characteristics that are of your introvert or extrovert personality. As a youngster, I was shy. I think I realized in high school that being shy wasn't as much fun as being more available to people, and that performance in a social way was kind of fun, uh, and that I could be the introvert I am and still enjoy the performance of socializing and the and just getting to know people. So I do see it as an evolution over time. While I'm still who I am and I still recharge my battery on my own, I've become much more adept at managing my skills around people and presentation and performance.
Great. That's such a wonderful, nuanced answer, Mark. It's interesting because I was shy, still am sort of shy. Can you recall sort of that first moment you realized you were shy and had this aha moment that gee, I think I could evolve from here.
Gosh, it's funny. I remember sort of when it happened in my life, which is kind of ninth grade to 10th grade, going from middle school to high school. What was there a light bulb moment? I can't recall that, and it's going to be a question I think about for the rest of today. But that was the age where, coming out of adolescent awkwardness,
Hmm.
we all go through that. Most of us go through that stage of the complete ugly duckling phase, and coming out of that and realizing that I had some gifts of dealing with people, and that I came out of the awkward phase with a certain amount of confidence and guts and courage. So it was the emergence from that adolescence where I awoke into a realization that it was more fun to leave the shyness behind.
Mm. Right. Well, I know I wanted to be perceived a certain way. So I hear what you're saying there, and I have worked at being perceived a certain way. But there's still an inner something there for me, for sure. And I'm glad that you were able to evolve more holistically. So in preparing for today, I thought, oh, I'm going to go online and I'm going to look at Mark's LinkedIn profile and see his activity there, and then go to Facebook. And you besides these, I think they may be automatic posts on Facebook for when you changed a picture or something, there are exactly two. There's nothing on LinkedIn, really, not even your full history. And the one picture on Facebook, your what they call the cover photo, is that beautiful shot of the table with the umbrella and the
Oh,
chairs
that one.
overlooking
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
mountains, which I'm assuming is your weekend, your
It's in the house in
getaway or
Vermont. Yeah.
something. Seems like a very quiet place. So uh, and so tell me about social media in your life and if you see any relationship to introversion there.
What a really good question. I have nothing intrinsically against social media. I have virtually no social media profile, um, and which is largely a time management issue. I just realized that I fail to keep up with the emails that are coming into my office right now.
Yeah.
That I will unfortunately not respond to everything that's in my email box today. And the idea of having yet another layer or layers of input will just be that much more I fail to respond to. Um, and it will distract me from responding to what I actually am paid to respond to. So my low social media utilization is just tied to priorities and available time. Now, in the context of this conversation, perhaps if I were not an introvert, I would be happy to spend a few hours a day, a few hours a week on social media, but those hours are how I catch my breath as an introvert. And that's where I need to be alone with a book or alone with a pen because I draw as a way to relax.
Yeah.
and that's my drawing time or my reading time, or my quiet time at the airport where I'm just focusing. So it's funny how I would say to someone else that my low social media participation is just time management, but I would say to you that what it would be competing with is my little bit of introvert time, and I'm not willing to give up my introvert time to be active on social media.
Interesting. And I'm not sure there's a parallel anyway, actually. I just was so struck by it this morning and yesterday as I was preparing, because I think a lot of introverts do connect through social media because it's more comfortable than in person. And others don't, perhaps because it's a lot of people responding.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know what the pattern is. I hadn't thought of it before I saw or didn't see
yeah. Yeah.
your social media presence. Um, so Mark, any further thoughts on just introversion and your role as a manager and a leader? You manage up to the board and down to the staff. Um, Anything that strikes you in terms of your personality in that role?
You know, I don't, nothing comes to mind except to harken back to something we talked about just a minute ago, which is I'm uninhibited in letting people know about some of my strengths and weaknesses, about the fact that we're planning an annual conference and people want to delegate up to me, and I'll say, I need some time. I need a break here. I cannot do this, or that. There are board members with whom I'm working on a big program that we might be doing together. And I'm uninhibited about sharing my strengths and weaknesses where I need to catch a breath, or how I need to keep going because if I stop, I'll just fall off, the tracks. So I would say that as a manager up and a manager down, I don't mask any of this. I just let people know what I can do and what I can't do, what I can do best, and where I'll need their help.
Well, Mark, I'm delighted that we had a chance to talk. I have dubbed this the year of the introvert, my year of the introvert, on the heels of the book last fall. But this year, I'm really pulling out the stops to make sure people understand introversion and appreciate us who are more introverted than not along that spectrum you talked about. And so I'm delighted that you are my first guest in this series that'll continue all year.
I'm really honored. I'm so pleased you asked me. Really delighted to speak about this. I love the book,
Thank you.
and I just I take away from the book the ability of an introvert to listen, and how within the fundraising environment, listening is so important. And that is a real advantage that we introverts have. So bravo for pointing that out.
Yes, and we can see it in the conversation today, I think. So thank you again. And
A pleasure.
stay tuned, everyone, for more wonderful interviews. Thank you.
Take care.